Hey everybody, Mr. Schreiber here, and we are going to get into the Brain Blaster number 5 answers. Let's begin. Number 1, it says when fully matured, a grape contains 80% water. After the drying process, called dehydration, the resulting raisin is only 20% water. So it went from 80% water to 20% water. It says what fraction of the original water in the grape remains after dehydration? Express your answer as a common fraction. And this is a level 2 difficulty. I think it's a level 5. This was a really, really tough one. And so what I'd like you to do is I want you to think about the mass, the total mass of the grape. And we're going to say that the grape didn't say that it was 10 grams. We're going to say that it's 10 grams. And the water would be 8 grams because it's 80% water. And the solid material would be 2 grams. Well, when you dehydrate something, you take away water. So the solid material stays the same. So it says when you dehydrated, the resulting water is only 20% water. It's only 20% water. That means the 2 grams stands for the 80%, and the extra 20%, which is the water, is the additional amount of weight. So if 2 grams stands for 80% of the total, then 100%, the total weight would be 2.5. This is going to be an important number. That means that the 20% of the water right here, 20%, that would stand for 0.5 of the total weight, the total water. The thing is, if you take a look here, what was the original amount of water? Well, the original amount of water was 80%, or 8 grams. So to find the answer, 0.5, which is the water that remains after dehydration, 0.5 divided by 8 is the same thing as giving you 1/16. And you multiply both sides by 2. Tough one. I think that was like a level 5 difficulty. Let's go to number 2. It says 2 sides of a regular pentagon are doubled and a new pentagon is formed. By what percent, very important, is the perimeter increased? So here's the thing. They don't tell you the length of each of these pentagons. But what you need to know is that a regular pentagon means that every single side is the same. So if I don't know the length of each side, I'm going to label that each side is equal to x. And I know that every single length is the exact same. And it says here, we're going to double, well, 2 sides are going to be doubled. So I took a look here, and all I did was I changed 2 sides to be double, which is 2 times x. So if I said, what is the perimeter here? You would add all those x's together and you would get 5x. If you add all the x's here, 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, you get 7x. Now, neither of these is going to be the answer, but what percent is the perimeter increased? So look here, it was 7x. I'm sorry, it was 5x, and now it's 7x. So how much did it increase? Well, it increased by 2x. This stands for the increase. And if you remember from our lessons about percent increase, that this is the amount of increase, and we always divide it by the original amount. 2/5 is equal to 0.4, which is equal to 40%. And that's your answer for number 2. Number 3, it says Nathan ran 2.5 miles at a pace of 7 minutes and 36 seconds per mile. If he wishes to complete the entire 5-mile run at an average pace of 7 minutes 24 seconds per mile, what should his pace be for the next 2.5 miles? So express your answer as a decimal to the nearest tenth. Well, the first thing I would do, and this is a tougher one, but of course, I'm going to use algebra to solve this, is that I'm going to take 7 and 36 seconds per mile, and I'm going to change that to a decimal. Well, you should know that 7 minutes and 36 seconds is 36 out of 60 because there's 60 seconds in a minute. And I'm going to divide that, and I'm going to get 7.6. So really, 7 minutes and 36 seconds is equal to 7.6. That's going to be important. Next, I'm going to figure out what is the decimal for running a 7-minute and 24-second mile. Well, a 7-minute and 24-second mile, that would be 24 out of 60. And that really gives you 7.4. So I'm going to erase this here for a second. Really what we're finding is you went from 7.6, or Nathan did, went from 7.6 to 7.4. And we have to figure out how do we get from here to here. And here's my equation. I want an average 7 minutes and 24 seconds. Well, I know the first 2 miles, this is mile 1, the first 2 miles, the first 2.5 miles was 7.6 miles. So that's the first mile, that's the second mile, and that's half a mile. So that right here represents what 2.5 miles would look like. Guess what? I don't know the answer to what his pace needs to be to pick it up to get 7.4, but I know I want to get to 7.4. So I'm going to put this as an unknown. I don't know what the first mile, the second mile, or the other half mile needs to be, but I know when I divide that by 5, when I find the average, I need to get to 7.4. And so I know this is going to be equal to a mile, and this is going to be 1/2 a mile. And when I add all that up, all these miles is going to equal 5. And when I divide it by 5, I'm going to get what my average time should be. So when we add it up, we're going to multiply by 5 on both sides. And we subtract 19 on both sides as well. Divide by 2.5, you're going to get the answer as 7.2 as a decimal. And again, we're just going to write this as an equation. Let's take number 4. It says 30% of 80% of 20 is the same as what percent of 60% of 40? Ugh, that's a whole lot. We'll take a look here. This says 30% of 80%, 0.3 of 0.8 of 20 equals x. And we don't have to put a percentage next to x because x is going to be a percentage after we actually solve it. X of 60%, which is 0.6 of 40. And then all we're going to do is we're just going to solve that. This says level difficulty is 4. I didn't think it was as tough as the other ones. When we solve this on both sides and we divide, you're going to get x is equal to 0.2. And what percent is that? Well, 0.2, when we move the decimal over, it's going to be 20%. And that's it. Well, actually, no, I think we had one more. It says given a minus b equals 3 and a squared plus b squared equals 65, what is the value of a to the third minus b to the third? And what the two things I would want to figure out, and the most important is, you can solve a bunch of different numbers to get a minus b equals 3. That could be 10 minus 3, right? That could be 15 minus 12. But the main thing I want you to look at is right here. What two numbers? There's only really two numbers you can think of that when you square it and you add it together, it gives you 65. There's only so many numbers you can really choose. And so I tried to figure out what numbers are kind of close to 65. What numbers, when you square the number, are kind of close to 65. And the answer to that would be 7 and 4. 7 squared plus 4 squared equals 65. That's 49. That's 16. That gives you 65. And once you have that, once you have these key numbers, the key number is 7 and 4. And we know 7 minus 4 is equal to 3. And all I have to do is plug that in here, 7 to the third power minus 4 to the third power, and it's going to give you 279. So the key was looking right here, focusing on what two numbers, when you square them, gives you 65. And sometimes, guys, especially when they give you two variables, if they give you an a and a b, you can't solve that. When they give you an a and a b like this in this scenario, you can't solve it. That means if you can't solve it using like a formula, then what you have to do is you have to use guess and check. So if you ever get confused and you don't really understand what to do, you can always just plug in numbers until you get the right answer. And it won't take you forever because you're going to use some of your math skills and your estimating skills to be able to get the answer relatively quickly. So I hope that helps. Hope you guys are having a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.